Welcome back to Midnight Grappler Animals, home of Flub Nation. I'm your host, Len, and with me I've got two future Olympiads. Which I know, Salt, you're the gymnastics guy, but Keigen, what Olympic sport do you think you could place moderately decent in?
Powerlifter.
Oof. I don't think I'd be even be close.
Running? You're a running kind of guy?
Sure.
Swimmer? I
yeah,
feel like in terms of when you think about the Olympic sport that the average Joe looks at and thinks to themselves, yeah, I could do this. I feel like it's shot put, right?
Really?
I feel like it's shot put.
Where did you get this?
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is
that's
something
really
I think about
far.
every time the Olympics come around.
You're like, shot put?
No,
What
not
about
me. I don't
curling?
think that.
Curling's kind of...
Well, now you can say breakdancing because of the whole ray gun thing, right?
No,
But like,
yeah.
But before that, there was always going to be someone saying, I could probably do that. It might be curling, actually.
I feel like
If we're talking winter,
likely.
if we're talking Winter Olympics, it's definitely
that's
curling.
True. Winter versus...
Now, but for summer though, I don't know. Skeet shooting, maybe.
Shot put's crazy, dude. That's complicated.
Shot put. I mean, shot
There's a
put
lot
is just.
there. I guess it is the kind of thing that's like, if 365 days and I did one thing, shot put. But like the thing about Olympics is like there's a degree of it that's not training at all. Like there is a degree of every single one that's like there's a little bit of genetic freakery that's happening here. That like maybe I just don't know what genetic freakery I have that would allow me to excel at something.
You got the really large latimus dorsi.
Yeah,
You just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a secondary mutation. Once you turn like 30, it just pops out of you.
Okay.
Well, we're not here to talk about the Olympics directly. If you noticed, it's Manga May. And for Manga May, the first book that we're covering is Naoki Urasawa's Asadora. Gentlemen, have you read Asadora before? Do you know of Asadora?
I had not heard of Asadora, and this was, in fact, my second exposure to Naoki Urasawa, my first being when we covered Pluto for the pod.
Oh, you read it for that episode too, right?
No.
No, you didn't. So
you explicitly ordered me not to.
Just watch it.
That's right, I did. You just watched the anime. Yeah, so this is actually your first like Urasawa manga that you're reading.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Keigen?
I love Urasawa. I am a typical Western comics guy. I've read a lot of Urasawa because everybody says read Urasawa. Asadora, I'm up to date on the whole thing. I read them as more or less as they come out. I read the newest one before the next one comes out. That's my goal. So like I'll buy it and it'll sit on the shelf for a while, and then I'll hear that the next one's coming and read it. Something along those lines. So yeah, I've read it. This is the second or third time I've read this volume, I think, actually. I may have read it again. I love this series a lot.
Yeah.
Is this still coming out?
Yeah, it's ongoing. Yeah. So as of right now,
tight.
there's 8 volumes. The 9th one should be coming out later this year. It's already out in Japan, obviously, but
it's been about one a year since the last couple of years.
I have a few questions about this manga, and I want to start with my most important one, if now's a good time.
Do you want me? Hold on. I'll introduce the manga first, and then you can ask your question. Okay, Asadora. It is a manga written and drawn by Naoki Urasawa, much like his manga about female protagonists. This one doesn't feature Takashi Nagasaki co-authoring it. So this has happened a few times in his career, but namely Yawara, Happy, Mujirushi, and now Asadora. This is Naoki Urasawa by himself doing the plot, the story, and the scripting here. It started serialization in 2018 in Weekly Big Comic Spirits. It's the first Urasawa book to be serialized digitally, and it takes its name from NHK's Renzoku Terebi Shousetsu, otherwise known as the Asa Dorama, shortened down to Asadora, which is just morning drama. NHK is Japan's national broadcaster, equivalent to CBC in Canada, BBC in the UK, and the US, I guess PBS maybe in the US. It's probably the closest you'd get, but you guys, I mean, media in the US is just 6 corporations in a trench coat anyway, so you'll never have anything on the level of NHK or CBC or BBC, but that's okay. Asadoras are interesting because it's one of the big 3 in terms of drama that are being produced by NHK every year. They are 15-minute episodes that run yearly, almost daily. They run from Monday to Friday, and they follow the adventures of a young woman and the challenges that she faces. So it very much is the kind of story that we're dealing with here. It starts in 1959 in Nagoya, and it will presumably end in Tokyo in 2020. Like I said before, this started serialization in 2018, back when people thought that the 2020 Tokyo Olympics were actually going to happen in 2020. And yeah, it's been serialized ever since. Viz started publishing it in English in the volume format in 2021. And the latest volume that you can get is volume 8. So yeah, that's the basic rundown of Asadora. What is your question, Salt?
Well, now I have a less important but more nagging question, because that confused me. You said there's a 15-minute cartoon of this that's on 5 days a week? What?
No, it's not a cartoon. It takes its name from a specific format of drama that happens from Monday to Friday on NHK.
Oh, okay. So the
story's
protagonist
wholly original, but in terms of like the format, that being, you know, we're following a young woman growing up and going through challenges in her life, that is very much in the spirit of the NHK Asadora.
See, I am always running the mental gymnastics in my head to convince myself we have a listener dumber than me so I can justify asking these questions.
That's good. You know, we need a viewer analog on the show at all times.
Representation is so important.
It really is.
So my main question was this. There is, this is a very grounded story, but there is a certain amount of kaiju depiction in here, which I assume will go on as you get onto further volumes. Is one of the reasons we read this because it's kind of an anti-Godzilla -1?
I wasn't really thinking about that until I reread it. I figured it would be interesting to read this because it's the latest as opposed to the earliest available Urasawa manga that we'll be covering later on, which is Master Keaton. So I figured it would be nice to like bookend, but now we're, I guess, reverse bookending it. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I can see the anti -1 read if we want to go down that route. Yeah, this book does feature a supernatural element to it, which we see very briefly in this first volume, but gets explored more in further volumes. This one really is more so about the core event here, which is the typhoon, which is based off the very real Typhoon Vera, which happened in 1959, and doesn't even end at the end of the typhoon. You know, the plot kind of keeps going into volume 2 for this specific part of the story. But yeah, first impressions. Let's hear those first impressions. Salt, I want to hear yours first.
Oh, I've been talking so long. My mouth needs a break. Let Keigen go.
Okay, Keigen, go back to 2021. What were your first impressions of this book?
When this started releasing, I was like as high on Urasawa as I possibly could have been. I think I had just finished 20th Century Boys, or I think I had read it that year, maybe. I had also read Pluto. I think I had already started Monster at that time. I don't think I had finished it. So I was like, I get to follow one as it comes out, obviously in English, but whatever. Super excited. And yeah, like immediately, I think the first two volumes came out pretty close to each other too.
Yeah, more or less. I think it was like a few months in between.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I think both of those were out pretty quickly too. And yeah, I mean, I like the Urasawa of it all is just like this dude knows how to make a cast of people who I want to follow, and like that's basically it. He's like, in a lot of ways, he's a really good like definitive person to look at as the difference between manga and like North American comics. Particularly just the way he paces things, and he also just like makes use of all of the things that we would say are stereotypical to the genre in manga, like without being super annoying, right? You make the joke a lot of the time with like Snyder has manga on his shelf because he does a lot of the annoying stuff, the annoying shonen stuff especially, and like Urasawa does the time skips, and he does like the big hype moments that manga will do too, but he just knows how to pull it off so well, I think. And Asadora is just fun. Like, this book's just super fun. This little girl who wants to help her community is great. Like, the introduction super quick, super easy to understand her. And I think it's really helped that she's just a little kid in this volume too. So it's like you can cut a lot of corners by a little kid doesn't have a lot of complex character traits. She's just running around doing stuff. And so like it's just a really charming read, I think. And he seeds just enough things to be like, oh, I can see how this can go on for however long he wants to do it too. Which is the other thing. His stories are pretty long, right? Like 20th Century Boys is the longest
21
story.
volumes.
Yeah, it's the longest story on my shelf, like 4,000 pages or something, over 4,000 pages. And
Monster
so it's like
18 volumes. Yeah, they go on for quite some time.
Yeah, and so he's good at, it's kind of in American comics, I think you could compare it to Claremont, where it's like he's always seeding a B plot that will turn into the A plot eventually. And it's just good. It's really good pacing and flow. And yeah, I mean, Asadora is something I've enjoyed following as it goes. A lot of it is because of that kind of thing where it's just like, yeah, I could pick it up and know where it's going. And it reminds me well of where it's been, even if it's been, 6 months or more. So yeah, I mean, it's just a fun, good vibe comic, I think.
Yeah. I remember this came out in, I want to say like early 2021. That's when the Viz release came out for the first time. And I remember I was much more ingrained in the comics critics miasma, we'll say. And I remember it was so hard to escape this book when it came out because of how Urasawa pilled everyone was. So this really was like the new manga, the new hit manga, on the block when it came out. So in that sense, yeah, it was inescapable, but I've been picking up every volume since. Haven't read most of them, actually. I think I stopped at volume 3. Not out of a lack of interest or anything, just lost time. But yeah, no, it's interesting to read because it is late stage Urasawa, and late stage for any artist, and especially a writer artist, is always not quite make or break, but it's always hard to gauge what kind of art they'd be putting out at that period of their life, and that period of their career even. With Asadora, it's funny because I feel like skill-wise, style-wise, Urasawa has crystallized. Not necessarily in a complacent way or a stagnation kind of way, but like all the hallmarks are here. All the faces, all the expressions, even the backgrounds. Like, it's Urasawa operating at a level that, it's so not even perfunctory. It's so weird. Like, the way to describe it is
Honed.
the words that come the words that come to mind all describe things that are like of a lesser quality, like perfunctory, rote, but none of those actually describe what Asadora
like
is, because Asadora is
almost like,
yeah, like it's really him performing at a high level and a consistent level.
yeah.
Well,
He's
the
just like hitting
problem,
marks.
it's not your fault, but it's that there's a lot of really lazy reviewers, professional or otherwise, who like toss out these words that should be reserved for specific levels of skill, and like this is mastery over the medium, right? Like I hear that one all the time, but like you can point to so many specific aspects of this, whether it's the composition, whether it's the pacing, whether it's the writing, you know, like it when someone's been working that long, they don't necessarily need to throw in an incredible new unseen feature every time. They just are working at their highest skill level possible. Like they've achieved self-actualization artistically.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's effortless. It feels like you can feel the self-assuredness, the confidence that Urasawa has in his own artistic skills, and that comes through very clearly in the art here. And it's funny because I was reading Master Keaton right before this, and I was going back and forth between the two to compare, because Master Keaton, that's 1988, this is 2018, that's like a 30-year difference. And a lot of the stuff that was in its nascence in his style in 1988, like it's still there in 2018. But the confidence in the line work is much more tangible, or palpable even. So Salt, what were your first impressions, since this is your first Urasawa manga?
I loved it start to finish.
It's good stuff. What were you expecting actually going into this? Because I know we kind of dropped this one on you.
So I wasn't terribly certain what to expect. I actually didn't expect I would love it, though, because I'm one of the few people who was not amazed by Pluto. That's not to put anyone down for liking it. I get why people like it. It doesn't do it for me. But this achieves. I'm more on the wavelength of what Urasawa wants to do here. Because I reading it, just reading this first volume, my first impression is like pardon the cliche, but like, oh, this is kind of a Miyazaki type thing where we're following like a young upstart girl, or this is like, a young girl adventure type story. And it works on that level. It succeeds. But like when I take this first volume as a whole, and assuming where it will go in the future, I haven't looked at the other volumes. This is a like an epic. And there's a better word for that. There is a specific word for a story that follows someone over the course of their whole life.
Yeah, it's called Asadora. No, I'm kidding.
No, there is like a specific term for like a story that goes from like their youth till their elder years. I don't remember what that is.
An epic? Well, there's the Epic of Gilgamesh, which
that's something
probably the basis.
But I think a good starting point is just like the framing of this story. Like you have the huge text over the massive scale of the kaiju attack, telling you explicitly this story will take place over, many decades. And then we get this smash cut to this exchange between a merchant and Asa, and then we get that incredible splash where she's pointing at herself and she says, "It's Asa!" Like it's such awesome pacing.
Yeah, it's a really good story because it sets up temporal expectations too, because by starting in 2020 you're giving the story a supposed end date. Even who knows if the story is going to go past 2020, but we know that like from where the story starts you have to end up at 2020 at some point, and in that sense that carries on with you going into every successive volume, because as the years progress, you're thinking, okay, well, this is the next step towards 2020. This is the next step. She's getting older. She's getting towards being 73 in 2020. So in that sense, it gives the story a sense of scale that, you know, it can't really be calculated, but at the same time, you know, there's the nature of it is that, like, you know, this is going to go on for quite some time. We're 8 volumes in, you know, we're still nowhere near 2020. So in that sense, you know, like, this is going to be going on for some time. There's like I said, a scale to it that really lets itself be known from the very opening moments.
Yeah, Lan, you had said, you were talking about, like, this is a later work, right? He's like 65 now. Urasawa is. So when he was making this, he was late 50s. And yeah, I that's something that I thought about as I was getting into, as Asadora was coming out, as it continues to come out. It's like, it's always cool to think of, like, these old dudes, what they're going to spend their time with now. Like, that Scorsese quote, you know, I don't have that much left in me. What am I going to do? And, like, seeing his output, but comparing that to Asadora's is crazy. Like, it's, you know,
I mean, even comparing to other mangaka, like Hirohiko Araki with JoJo Lands right now, you know, there used to be a time where he was pumping that stuff out weekly, but now it's like once a month. He's slowed down, but he's still, like, putting out the work, and I believe he just recently turned 60. And it's crazy to think, because, you know, when you think about, like, where these guys' careers started, right? Like, who their contemporaries were. Like, these guys came up and around the same time as, like, Katsuhiro Otomo, right? And to see them still working this late into their careers, and the fact that it is a point in their career where we can say it's a late stage thing. Like, we don't know when they're going to die, right? We don't know when they're going to stop making manga. We don't know if Asadora is going to be the last thing that Urasawa even produces. But I think there is that uncertainty, I guess, especially with how many, you know, manga artists and creators don't get to see that late stage, right? Like the Kentaro Miura's, even Toriyama was taken from this world way earlier than anyone was expecting. So yeah, in that sense, you know, like it's not quite a rarity, but it does feel like an uncommon thing to get to experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good, like, illustration of how the manga industry is different from the North American comics too. Not that, you know, they're obviously older comic creators. They tend to be writers, right? Or they tend to be, you know, if they are retirement age, if they've effectively, because they're slow, because they're old, they're slower than, like, the production schedule. They get pushed out into doing stuff like Walt Simonson does the Ragnarok comics, like, on a good schedule for an old guy, but, like, it's nothing. He couldn't be doing Thor right now, right? And seeing how it pushes them out into the edges where, you know, you kind of have to draw attention to that, versus, like, that we're all, at least North American market, flocks to Asadora, you know. There's a way for him to continue doing it, and, like, it feels less like this is his only way to make money versus he wants to be making art. And obviously that's all, I have no idea if that's true.
Yeah, I mean, this is his 5 to 9. His 9 to 5 is actually making new episodes of Monben.
yeah. But no, like, that, it does feel more like that.
Before we move on, for Salt and the viewer analog here, Monben is an ongoing series of TV shorts where he interviews other manga creators and gets to go through their process. It's a great show. It's been subbed. You can find it online. So yeah, if you haven't, go watch Monben. I think the new one's called Neo Monben or Monben Neo. I forget. Anyways, keep going.
No. That's the point I was making anyway is just like this Asadora feels like a thing. I mean, I think manga tends to feel more like the creator wants to be doing this thing, you know, especially if it's not 1,000 chapters into Naruto or whatever, you know. If they're not going that route, if they're making things outside of that, it feels like this is the thing he wants to do at this stage in his career. Not dissimilar to Killers of the Flower Moon with Scorsese.
Yeah. So with this being your first exposure to Urasawa, and you having have read Ishinomori's work, can you see like the through line between the art styles there?
Totally.
Because Ishinomori has been listed as an influence of Naoki Urasawa's.
Yeah. I can see that, and well, I'm having the worst brain fart. Who is the Astro Boy creator? Tezuka, thank you. Yeah. I see the Tezuka influence as well, but yeah, is there more you can speak to on the Ishinomori influence?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with both Ishinomori and Tezuka, it's down to the noses, right?
Yeah.
And Urasawa is very much like that, you know, the very large pointed nose, and it's funny in Pluto because, you know, a lot of that is trying to emulate the style on a spiritual level of Tezuka's original artwork, but like you know, I was talking about his art style being crystallized, and you know, I think Kasuga is like the best example of that in this book, because like Kasuga is like, you could take that character, you could probably put him into 20th Century Boys and no one would bat an eye. You can put him into Monster, no one would bat an eye. Like the style of nose that he has is just so distinctive to Urasawa, and even just not just the nose, but like the way it goes down to the way his mouth is shaped too. In a very similar sense, you know, you have Kunoyo, and Urasawa just loves giving Kunoyo that stare, you know, the that look of disapproval is so classic, I feel, to someone that is familiar with Urasawa's art, but for someone that isn't familiar with Urasawa's art, there is that like striking nature to it, right? Like the visual distinctiveness to it, which, you know, when you're juggling an ensemble cast like with this series, I think it's a very key skill to have.
Another note on the Ishinomori comparison is how both artists juggle figures versus backgrounds. And that is, you know, if you want to draw a binary, and I know it's a false one, but you know, if you had to, like, that is the two main components of how you organize a composition in manga and anime for that matter, right? And you know, I was seeing on the Wikipedia that Urasawa himself claimed that he had so much fun on an earlier short story doing his own backgrounds with less assistance, that he went out of his way to do more of the backgrounds himself, and that was one of the most striking parts about reading this, is, you know, the hyper detail of the backgrounds. Now, to bring that back to Ishinomori, when you compare Ishinomori to Tezuka, the character designs have certain similarities, but Tezuka, by and large, and I'm no expert on him, but he seems to have more, you know, symbolic or suggested backgrounds, and that's fine. That's no shade against him. Versus Ishinomori, even in Kamen Rider, with these like, you know, very cartoonish looking characters, the backgrounds are so detailed in how rendered they are, right? And this is very similar. The characters strike this balance between realistic and cartoonish, but the backgrounds are so rendered and realistic. That's really fun.
Yeah, I love the way that he renders like wind, especially like so much of that reminds me of reading those early issues of Ishinomori's Kamen Rider, where you can really like feel the visual weight of the way that he draws wind.
Yeah, for sure.
In our PFLP, a Red Army PFLP episode, like we were talking about the that like Japanese technique where you show the landscapes and let the story breathe and stuff like that, right? I think I talked about how in manga that like when I read about that, it clicked and I realized like that, yeah, that's a whole thing. And I think Urasawa like is so he does such a good job of doing that in a noticeable way. You know, he like introduces the landscape of the setting. He introduces the setting as its own thing. Like he takes time to do that in multiple chapters throughout this, whether it's to show the wreckage or to show like the storm or to show the buildings around Asadora or Asa. And it's just like, it's just one technique of many, but it is that thing of like the setting. He gives the setting room to have space in a really cool way.
Yeah. I want to go back to the story for a bit here, because, you know, in reading both this and Master Keaton at the same time, one thing I was thinking about was where this volume ends off. And I think my take on it has been clarified, I guess, a bit more now that I know more of the Asadora influence on it, you know, with this being an ongoing thing meant to emulate this like yearly, like it's almost like watching the morning news, right? Like you're tuning in for 15 minutes every morning to see what this you know, female protagonist is up to in her own life. So like, because the thing that I was thinking about initially was, you know, when you read Monster, by the end of the first volume, you have a pretty good idea of like what the core conflict of the story is, right? Like it's going to be Tenma versus Johan. When you're reading Master Keaton, it's not necessarily that there is a serialized conflict in it, but you know, you have a good idea of who Master Keaton is and like what his deal is, like what he is, what he does. Much in the same way, Pluto, first volume, you have a strong idea of like what the main conflict is, what is going to be built up to. And in here, it's not necessarily a conflict between people, you know, like there is a kaiju, yes, but at the end of the day, it's really a woman versus the world, or a young girl versus the world. And I think that sets itself apart from a lot of Urasawa's male protagonist centered works. Like the other thing I can compare this to is Yawara, which isn't available in English, which, yeah, it really does feel like the blueprint for what he is doing here. But again, that goes back to the whole like late stage thing, right? Like he's done several other stories featuring female protagonists, so by this point, you know, this is not him retreading ground, it's him taking that experience and working with it to create and craft a story that is its own new thing.
Yeah, I think my like reading this volume one, if it I know it is incomplete, so when I call it incomplete, it's like, well, duh. But like it doesn't feel quite, it doesn't end at all. Like
no,
it
really feels like you know what I'm thinking? If this were to get turned into a perfect edition, you know, and you put volume 1 and 2 together, that feels like the kind of format the story was made for.
Yeah.
Where once, I guess this is cheating on both our parts, you know, like once you read volume 2, you understand like that's where the
exactly
other half of this story goes.
But I think one of the weird things about this is, right, we're all talking about, you know, this goes to 2020, and like this, it's fun trying to figure out how long this story is going to be, is basically what I'm trying to say, because 20th Century Boys does its major crazy insane thing that is like, this is a whole new story, like 6 perfect editions in, like halfway through the story, you know. For this, the thing that happens at the end of volume 2 is way less than that, but it's similar, where it like, okay, it solidifies that this is what this thing for the most part, for most of the story is going to be. And yeah, like it's it's really weird reading this volume 1 knowing that too, because it's like this is not like there's so much still that's not even on the table yet with chapter 8, with which again Urasawa does that kind of stuff all the time. It's like a feature of his work that it unfolds more and more as it goes, and it like justifies its length by doing that. Just a weird experience reading this volume 1 and being like, oh wow, this is not even, there's so much that's not clarified here.
I'm gonna counter with a lukewarm take. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think by ending the volume how he ended it, it's a really fun hook, and I've seen it work in other formats, particularly in the animated format. If you were to adapt this in a Pluto style adaptation where you cut as little as possible, you could make volume 1 work as 2 30-minute episodes, with each 30-minute episode being 4 chapters, or one 60-ish minute episode, and it would absolutely work and feel like a complete thing for what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, the end of the first volume, you don't even know what happened to Asa's family. You know, there's so many unknowns that we're still running with, even within the scope of just this event, right? Like the typhoon event, which is honestly enough to keep people wanting to read, right? Like you want to know where the rest of this happens. I want to go back to the first chapter though, because the first chapter ends off on a very interesting, like,
it's weird.
It's weird. Yeah, weird is a better word to use
like
here.
It's like not clear. It's like, almost like he changed his mind about something.
Well, maybe COVID happened. No, no, that was still years off. No, what it is it got, when I got to the end of the first chapter, you know, I was thinking, is this okay because of where Urasawa's at in his career that he can end a chapter off like that?
Yeah.
And, you know, people will be there to read it on account of it being Urasawa.
Yeah,
as opposed to like
a
that
little
early
light
career.
Kidnapping is okay.
Well, you know, there's that aspect of it, but like it doesn't end on a crazy cliffhanger, right? It doesn't.
It's kind of crazy.
I mean,
he introduced this girl and she got kidnapped by this creepy looking guy.
You know, you get that resolved more
really
or less really quickly. You know, like it ends on, you know, Kasuga crying and then it cutting to the typhoon, and the last page is 3 shots of the typhoon happening. And you know,
look,
like I was
look,
thinking,
Lan. This is a response to TikTok. I'll elaborate on that further, but you keep going.
Okay, interesting. Shit, how do I keep going? I'm actually going back to my point though, is that like, you know, like I mentioned before, I was reading Master Keaton in the same week as this, and the end of that first chapter, you have a solid idea of like what Master Keaton's whole deal is, right? And then, granted, that's meant to be a much more episodic series than this is. Like, that's the funny thing, I guess, about the namesake here, is that like, unlike the Asadora drama format, which is meant to be this like episodic vignette into this young woman's life, this is a much more serialized, ongoing, fluid story. And yeah, like I said before, like if this was Urasawa's first work, would audiences have clung to this story off that first chapter alone? And that's what I'm not entirely sure of. Like if this were to come out in 1988 and you get this first chapter, you know, would audiences be cool with it? You know, like would they be like, yeah, I'm interested in seeing, just in terms of the amount of runway that manga gets, you know, in general, right? It's very easy to come back from it. But yeah, like as a first chapter, it is kind of weird. Yeah. So Salt, what do you have to say about this being the anti-TikTokification?
TikTokification.
Yeah, well, TikTok is what I have I call TikTok the crying app. It's where you log on to watch people cry. And so we end with a man crying. Yeah, that's crazy.
It.
Like, you like open your phone, and like, whoa, damn, that old man is crying. That's crazy. I'm glad I opened my phone for that. So he's
Poor
saying
guy.
like, hey, comics can keep up with this. Like, we are not going to be ousted by this technology. If you open this comic book, I can give you the same satisfaction
and,
of watching
this is the first digital manga.
Dude, he's on it. He knows his shit. Urasawa is with
he's got his
man.
toes on the pulse. Damn, he's got his toes on the pulse.
On a less joking answer, I do think this is still very masterfully planned because, yeah, there is the surprise of seeing the kidnapper break down, but you turn the page and, we have the symmetry of like, oh, he's crying. There's, this water motif, and then we have the rain, then we have the ocean, but you do have the cry of the monster coming from the water. And I do see that as a limitation of the medium. I think that might hit harder in like an animated series, you cut and you see the ocean and you hear this like really deep roar from this kaiju. Like, that feels very purposeful.
Yeah, I mean, that as a book into the first chapter, right? Because the first chapter starts with the monster attacking Japan in 2020. It makes sense, and I think it's one of those things where if you haven't fully clocked in to the supernatural elements of this story, it's the kind of thing that will go over your head. I think it's a very deliberate move on Urasawa's part to not actually show, hints of what the monster could be like. In Pluto, we see hints of what Pluto is in shadow. We don't see Pluto itself, but like, we see that there is this presence, and we don't get that in this last page.
Yeah, he was like watching Cloverfield and he thought, damn, what if this wasn't ass?
Yeah, I mean, from there the story just kind of goes there. It does get a bit non-linear in parts, but from the moment you get that last page in the first chapter, I think that really sets the stage for a much more straightforward story. From there on out, we follow Asa and Kasuga. Kasuga we get to know more of in chapter 3. We also get Sho, which is the neighborhood boy who runs. Like, that's his whole thing. He's a boy and he runs. He wants to be an Olympic runner. And then we're introduced to Kinuyo. Like, it has all of the hallmarks of a solid first volume, and I think it's good. It's good. You're like you said, Salt. It's a mastery of, what did you say?
It was something that sounded smart at the time.
Master of the medium. Sounds about right. If it wasn't right, tell us.
No, I agree with that. Damn, whoever said that was onto something.
Yeah, really smart guy.
So I have 2 points I want to get across real quick. One is that, every, being such a masterful work, every panel, every page is exactly where it should be. So it's all really rewarding on its own. But what I found most satisfying in here was the whole scheme with dropping the water and the food from the plane. Because like, that's crazy, but he does it in such a believable way, taking into account the physics of it, and to be able to think that all through and have the characters. Like, I really like watching characters be believably smart. You know what I'm saying?
Like, smart within the expected limitations. Like Kasuga,
exactly.
Like when he's going to steal that plane, it's the exact kind of scheme that you would expect of someone with his life experience and his relative intelligence, also knowing what we knew from the previous chapters where he failed to even kidnap Asa, right?
But he doesn't steal the plane in a particularly suave way.
No, it doesn't. And chapter 6 ends on this beautiful 4-panel where we see the runway, we see the what's it called, the landing gear, we see the plane, and then we see the blood in that last panel, which really, like, it's visual language, yes, but it's also like, oh yeah, he didn't, this wasn't a clean getaway. Yeah. Like
Right.
Kasuga did what he had to survive, and I think the survival element is also a key thing here, like the element of perseverance, especially with this being post-war Japan, right? Like, this is just 59 would have been 14 years after the war ended, right? So Tokyo and really all of Japan was still in this like rebuilding stage. So to encounter this natural disaster again, to be forced back into this like mode of survival, like you can see how each of these characters, from the person that was in the war to the person, to the young girl who was born after the war, you can see how they are taught to react to these kinds of situations. The part where he tells Asa to not cry, and he like relates it back to what he tell his men, like not to write their wills. I want to go back, Salt, and I want to pick your mind about the anti-1 statement that you made earlier in the episode, because I feel like reading that one, that was also where I was like, So,
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
No, I want to hear you elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, that section is of particular interest because they make explicit that he had no desire to fight in the war, and that fighting in the war was shameful for him. But he was someone who found himself there, Kasuga that is, and was purely fighting to keep his men alive. There's not an ounce of bitterness that they lost due to faulty leadership. The bitterness is having to fight in a damn war in the first place, which is, I find that to be a very distinct difference, right? Like, that's not, it lacks the right-wing national undertones of Godzilla -1. I have more, but I think it's a good place to start.
-1, but even the Eternal Zero, which is another Takashi Yamazaki.
When we talk about Godzilla -1, we are talking about the Eternal Zero.
Yeah, no, I bring up the Eternal Zero because the whole thing of that story is that it starts off with a guy who doesn't want to fight, who's focused on, keeping as many of his men alive as possible, but it ends with, him going and being in a kamikaze plane. Stupid movie. Stupid book, by the way, written by a right-wing nationalist.
Did that make sense the way I said that?
No, it does. Yeah, there's a level of nuance here, and a respect even to the fact that, like, this is still a person who was negatively affected by the war, even though they were conscripted to fight for the Japanese army. He acknowledges that it wasn't a good thing for him to be in the war, especially on the side of the Japanese. But at the end of the day, Kasuga is still someone who we can actually sympathize with because of, the tribulations that he's been through, and also the struggles that he is encountering in the current day. It's a level of nuance that Urasawa's, frankly, honestly, been pretty good with for most, if not all, of his career. Like, it shouldn't be surprising to see someone not venerate the Japanese army or former members of the Japanese army in a piece of media, but like the fact that there is that care being put here, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I think too it continues in some other places, like the fact that the police are more interested in following the letter of the law rather than stepping up when there's a public health crisis. It's it's less macho. Like Godzilla -1 is a very macho film. I think this guy getting back in his plane specifically to distribute food, food and water it's a lot more community minded than like, well, I got to get back in the plane and show that I can fire the bullets as good as the rest of them.
The fact that he's doing it and it doesn't feel like an act of repentance.
Yes.
I think is the key thing here, right? Like most of the time in a Takashi Yamazaki narrative, we'll say, there is that element of repentance, like this is me making up for the fact that I was a kamikaze fighter or whatever. This doesn't feel like that, it's not like he's making up for having done some wrong. And I think that's the great thing about that piece of the story being resolved within the first chapter already, is that like it's not dragged out as to be the impetus for everything he does in the rest of the volume. He snaps out of it, he locks in, and he does these things not because he's trying to make up for the fact that he at one point did a wrong, but because it's the right thing to do. It's the communitarian thing to do. And in that sense, like the whole element of community in this volume, there's no nationalist tinge to it.
Yes.
Right? Like when Asa gathers all the store owners to make the rice balls, it doesn't feel like this is the strength of the Japanese coming together in face of adversity. Like it's a community coming together in the face of a natural disaster.
Well, and that was why I mentioned the oh, sorry, I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
Well, and that was why I mentioned the cops, because when the heroes at the end of Godzilla -1 have to forge their plan and they're not being assisted, to me, it felt like, the Japanese military apparatus continues to be cowardly, right? Like, these brave heroes are not allowed to go out and fight the way they want. Whereas here, when the police aren't helping, it feels more like a criticism of bureaucracy in a general sense, and a less of a nationalistic criticism of authority, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think Urasawa is extremely good at this. Everything you guys are saying too. I think across all of his work, he has a very communal focus on how problems are solved, how problems are caused, are in gaps in community and stuff like that too. And like even the cop thing to that specific point that you were making, Salt, like it doesn't feel like they're saying cops are awful. It feels like they're like, shut up, dude. Like, you individual person, stop being a narc. Like, just we're getting people water, and like the presentation there is, like you said, it's just like spot on in that particular way. And I don't even know how he pulls it off, but it's like consistently part of the thing, to the point where even like, so many of his stories revolve around, or like, the post World War II is incredibly important to Japanese history, and it's important to his stories a lot of the time. And like a lot of the time, America just kind of exists as a thing that like puts pressure on Japan, but like isn't evil in like a way. It's really cool how he works with a lot of that stuff, because it's never like militaristic. It's never like pro colonialist or anything like that. It's just kind of like, yeah, these are just people and like bad things happen, but the way through it is community, is relying on each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very pertinent time in Japanese history, specifically with relations to, this was in the lead up to the Ampo protests. We talked about this in the Red Army PFLP episode. This was a huge time for populism in Japan, and not like right-wing populism, but like the idea of this is a nation that is forced to rebuild while you have this overseer in the form of the US, lording over it. But that isn't the focus here. It's not Japanese against the Americans here. It's the working class, coming together in face of this natural disaster.
I feel like those themes make it feel more universal to different cultures in more time periods than say, Godzilla -1.
Yeah, I mean,
it should be noted. You go.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I mean, I'm criticizing Godzilla -1 a lot. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I just want to say I could enjoy a thing with rancid politics.
Yeah. I should make that too, because
Godzilla -1, and it's true, and everyone should know.
I knew Salt you were going to make the disclaimer.
It's not just me.
That's why I wanted you to go, because I knew
there's other humans. Why do you own it? Why do you own it when you hate it so much, Lan?
I don't know. Well, I should note that I do own a lot of things that I hate. Right, where was I?
One other thing on this train of thought, if you want time to collect, to everything you guys were also saying, about, I can't remember his name, about Kasuka. There's this line Asa says, instead of crying, I should take action. They're making the rice balls and she's, getting emotional. And again, I think grounding this in a child's perspective is very helpful to solidify all this stuff with the adults too. Where it's like, yeah, look, this little girl knows the right thing to do. And she's learning the right thing to do from them, and they're also looking and being like, "Damn, she's right. Let's just make these rice balls and let's do this." And it rules. It's like
there's that element of childhood innocence, and also this overarching there's a sense of invincibility and a lack of impossibility that really only applies when you are a kid. And the idea that she sees the rice balls and her first instinct is, oh, we'll just go to where the rice balls are at. We'll just make more rice balls. She goes to Kinuyo and she says, hey, can you make rice balls? The people need rice balls. Yeah, it's so childlike, and it's not, and that's not a derogatory thing. It's that innocence that then gets imparted onto the community around her.
Yeah, I find crafty or clever children in the majority of media to be highly unbelievable, but this is the exception.
Children,
I do.
Hate children, Salt.
Yeah.
I would like to flip kick them.
Why do you think I work at a gym with kids? You can throw them away.
It's how you're learning how to shot put,
Get up. You're stronger than this.
I did throw this 7-year-old Russian boy in our foam pit once, and then his mom threatened that her husband would come beat me up if I ever did anything like that again.
Someone please clip that. And let's make that go viral. But yeah, back to your point, Salt, about unbelievable children.
Yeah, no, Asadora is the exception. I find, given her circumstances and how she's growing up, the fact that a child like this would be able to articulate for herself and so resourceful is highly believable, and really brings the whole drama to life in a satisfying way.
For me, I kind of want to go back and read Mujirushi after reading this, because Mujirushi also features a very young female protagonist, and I think it came out around the same time as this. I think it was around 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I think it was right before.
And so in some ways it kind of feels like a proto Asadora, or like him, I guess test running that kind of character. But yeah, this really does feel like a believable young girl going through this. And I think that's the strength of a story like this. And that's just the kind of thing that makes or breaks a story like this too is like the believability that Asa is a person that you could encounter in real life. And, you know, that goes back to the Asadora, the dramas too, right? Like the idea of the Asadora drama is that you're following the exploits of a woman, a young woman that you feel that you can encounter in real life, that you could sympathize with, that you can empathize with, that in many senses you're growing up alongside because of the frequency and the nature of the show. You know, like you're seeing this woman every single morning for a very brief period of time, and, you know, catching up with what she's going through in life, and that then gets imparted back onto you. You know, the spirit of that is captured within this manga really well.
Yeah, I would absolutely go back, and I will this week. I will go to the library and pick up the further volumes, because this was such a good read. I'm glad we started with this one.
Yeah, I'm glad San Francisco's library system was so primitive as to not have Master Keaton, so that we could read this this week instead of Master Keaton.
Yeah, I'm excited to do that the backwards way, actually, too.
Yeah, you know,
Lan was so mad in the Discord.
I was shocked and appalled at the state of the American library system. I felt bad. I felt so sad at the state. What has Amazon done to our beautiful libraries? I feel like Kevin Durant in that one tweet. What are they doing to our beautiful women?
I bet you Salt could get every volume of Naruto right now.
I bet I could. You're so right.
Master
You know what?
Keaton
In our
is
next
for weebs.
episode, we're going to follow up with you on that, actually. So please do that within the next week.
All
And I just want
70
you to know,
volumes or
like, I
whatever.
have proof. This is what I
Yeah,
get.
proof.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, be
So
ready to
upset.
bring that proof next week. Salt versus the people versus Salt M Bank begins next week.
There's over 60
That's a
volumes
nice
of
callback.
Naruto.
There's quite a few.
Quite a few, yes.
It's very long.
Quite a few.
700
They have all
chapters.
of this at my library. They have all of these
Yeah,
things.
that makes sense. That makes sense. But, you know, you got to go, you know.
I
gotta
would
go.
not expect Master Keaton to be at maybe 20th Century Boys. That and
20th
Pluto,
Century
maybe.
was yeah, actually, that's what you got to follow up with us next week, is tell us if 20th Century Boys and Pluto are at your library.
Yeah.
I like how Lan
That's-
thinks it'll take me a whole week to Google something. They do have 20th
Well, no,
Century
no, no,
Boys.
it's-
We'll know
not-
sooner. It's for the listeners.
Yeah, it's for the listeners. You know, it keeps this ongoing narrative that keeps people wanting to come back and listen to more episodes of Manga May.
All right,
So
I'm
in the
looking
next
at Pluto
episode of
right
Manga
now.
May, no.
Yeah, this actually
I'm
goes back to
cutting
the
this
Discord
out.
too, because it's like, why would you ask somebody to do something on Monday when they could do it right now? It doesn't take you until Monday to do this.
You know, I'm just trying to get more people to listen to more of Manga May. You know, next week, what are you even covering next week? What was it, Golden Convoy?
Kaboy, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so there we go. You know, Salt, for the time that you're spending learning about what books... Okay, hold on. First, does your library have Golden Kamuy?
Oh, shouldn't
Yeah,
we
that's a
save
good
that for
question.
next week?
Well, that's... Yeah, you know what? Save it for next week. I don't even want to know right now. I don't even know. I don't care.
It might
I
be
don't
on
care.
Hoopla, actually.
Do you guys have Hoopla?
I have
Oh, I use Hoopla all the time.
Oh, okay.
I
There you go. Yeah, it
checked-
should be on Hoopla.
The Innsmouth is on Hoopla, so
It's
I'll
funny,
have to
Shadows
buy
over
that.
Innsmouth's like the one volume that I didn't already own prior to Manga May.
see
So,
I'm
that's
gonna
a tough
have
one.
to buy.
That one is available on
Ishida no Joe.
Overdrive in Toronto's public library system. That's not available physically, so, you know, there we go. There's your ammo. Toronto's public library system has Master Keaton all 11 volumes, but not
That's so
Go
weird.
Tanabe's Shadows
That's
over Innsmouth.
so weird. Like, I don't expect Master Keaton. I don't know, when was Master Keaton? I guess we'll all learn this.
2007-ish is when it was
That's when
like
the perfect
published.
editions were, though.
Let me check
Or
that
are
out.
those even the
Master
signature editions, whatever?
Keaton.
I don't know.
All right,
what ones I
gang,
have.
I gotta get going soon. Are we doing the grab bag today?
Yeah, we gotta let me do the thing that we always do. Remember, there's a whole spiel before the. Remember that?
Yeah.
This is actually just me stalling so I could figure out when it was released. 2014 to 2017. There we go. 2014 to 2017 is when Viz released the English version of Master Keaton. Now, I think that's the episode, right? As always, the show is made possible thanks to contributions from listeners just like you. If you put up with all the shenanigans that we got up to in this episode and you'd like to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/midnightgrappleranimals. $2 a month gets you episodes a week, maybe even more earlier than the public, as well as the ability to vote on future episode topics. You get more, you get more voting power. Can you believe that? This is a democratic system, but you get more voting power. It's like the Electoral College. You want to be Midnight Grappler Animals' Electoral College? Join patreon.com/midnightgrappleranimals. $5 a month gets you not only that, as well as our backlog of bonus episodes and Patreon exclusive series, like the Last Infighter, which has already caused a significant amount of infighting within Midnight Grappler Animals. So if you want to see what that's about, $5 a month at patreon.com/midnightgrappleranimals, as well as exclusive channels in our Discord server. You can also support us through morale. Give us 5 stars on your podcast app of choice. Doesn't matter what you say. Just give us 5 stars. Tell us we changed your life. That'll be a great boost to our egos. If you want to tell us more directly, though, you can send all your questions, comments, or suggestions for the show at midnightgrappleranimals@gmail.com. And if you want the links to our Discord server as well as our Bluesky pages, you can find that in the description of this episode. All right, Tastemakers Grab Bag. Who is going first?
Keigen wants to go first.
I'll go first. I watched Michael Clayton, and go ahead and throw that in there. It's good. It's real good. It's not like incredible. I do this on every Tastemakers grab bag, I think, but like I liked it a lot. Very, very entertaining, fun. Just very competent characters being competent is cool. And George Clooney is very fun. So Michael Clayton, finally watched it. That's because of Andor. Just so everybody knows, it's Andor's fault I watched it. My other thing is I finished the book Che Guevara and the Cuban Revolution by Mike Gonzalez. This book is really short. It was like just a random in my used bookstore, like in the revolution section or whatever, civil something section. I picked it up because I had read the Life of Che, like Fantagraphics graphic novel last year. This book rules. It's great. It criticizes Che in like the particular ways that he deserves to be criticized, and doesn't shy away from them. But it also like talks about him as the revolutionary that he was. Really good, like kind of a brief overview of the whole revolution and like the not so much the causes. It just sort of lightly covers the causes, but like goes a little bit more in depth on the theory and stuff like that. It's really good. I loved it. So weird little book that I have no idea how I even really came across because used bookstores are so random, but I'm happy I did. That's it for
Nice. Salt, what you got?
Wait, hold on. I want to add that to my list. What's the title of the book?
Che Guevara and the Cuban Revolution, and it's written by Mike Gonzalez, some British guy. So like literally, it doesn't even have
British.
I know. It doesn't have a price. It's like €8. Bookmarks Publications. So this is just a weird thing I'm gonna have for a while. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll send it to you if you can't find it.
Have it in my library.
If you can't you can't find it online, I'll ship it to you.
Did you check Hoopla? Was Hoopla there?
I'll check Hoopla. Hoopla tonight, Queen?
That's really good. Don't make me bust the hoopla, man. Like, what the?
Can it be movie night tonight, Queen? Can it be movie night?
So library build.
Support your local library so they can actually get the funding required to buy Master Keaton.
1 through 11.
1 through 11. There's only 11 volumes.
We're living off
if you get
thrift
like
books here.
I am recommending our own podcast. Specifically, and I'm only doing this because I'm really pleased with the interview I conducted with Lexi Alexander. I hope you have listened to that, if that's out already, or you will listen to it when it comes out.
I'm gonna put the picture of Obama putting the medal on himself.
That's right. That's what I just did.
Yes. Yes. He deserves it. I'm very excited to listen.
Yeah. That's it?
That's it.
Wow. Okay. So first I'm going to recommend Marvel's Thunderbolts. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I finished Judgment, the video game Judgment, after I don't know how many hours. It doesn't matter. Good game. Really good game. Really good plot. I was surprised by how good the final chapter of that game is. There's a lot that I love about the game. I don't love the fact that, like, I think 2 out of the 4 girlfriends that they give or offer to you in the girlfriend minigame are like teenagers, but like barely. It's awful. That part of the game awful, but like the rest of the game fantastic.
You're shaking my head.
Shaking my head on the bus so everyone knows.
Me, I when I saw that, I'm like, I'm not getting the platinum. I'm just gonna stay with my very legal age office lady girlfriend. I'm gonna be monogamous.
Lan leans out his window and just shaking his head while he's holding his controller.
Lan walked down to the library and was like, "Guys, I'm gonna give you this game, but just know I'm writing on the case."
I'm gonna put a sticker on the case. Do not recommend the girlfriend minigame. I do recommend the gambling. The gambling is actually fantastic in this game. Good. The gambling rocks. The gambling's at a real fever pitch in this game. But yeah, Judgment, good game. Good game. In terms of movies, I'm gonna recommend Sinners. Because it's been long enough. It's been long enough since we recorded an episode that we've all seen Sinners, but no one's recommended it. So I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna recommend it. Watch Sinners, and then watch Dope if you want to watch Shamik Moore jerking off.
Okay, that's cool. I hope Serg. I hope the next episode Serg is on is he says Sinners. Don't everybody tell.
No one.
Don't everybody mention. Let it just happen, maybe.
Yeah. No, not even we're gonna let it happen. We're gonna pretend like it's the first time that anyone's recommended it.
Okay.
So Serg's gonna say it, and we're gonna be like, "Wow,
how did nobody do that?
I should have recommended that."
Ryan Coogler did a new movie? What?
Wait, Ryan Coogler just saw movies?
I just saw his TikTok video about the aspect ratios. Not.
Wait, Haley Steinfeld did what into Michael B. Jordan's mouth? What the hell?
Haley Steinfeld did what in Tel Aviv? All right, sorry, I ended the fun.
Oh no, is this true?
Wait,
is this something we need to Google?
No, it's true. I'm sorry. I'm always here to ruin people's fun.
Damn it! Here I was thinking that her marrying Josh Allen was the worst thing she could have ever done.
Now Alan can never go back to that show that I can't remember the name of.
What show?
The Apple TV Plus. No, Apple TV Plus one.
Dickinson. Dickinson. After Emily Dickinson,
I couldn't remember her name either. I was trying to remember her name first, and then I was like, well, it's a TV show also.
Real deep cut.
I'm bad with names. This is on the record.
Well, that was an episode. That was the first episode of Manga May even. Please stay tuned. We got more Manga May coming for the rest of this month. Tune in next week. We're going to cover Golden Kamui Volume 1. And as always,
keep on grappling.
Keep on grappling.
Perfect as always.